Series 2, episode 2 hands. Episode 2 hands.
2 hands.
Yeah, cool. And you're now in a very swanky office. What's the view? Training pitch?
No, a wall.
Let's be realistic.
It helps me work. I've got a whiteboard in front of me, though. That is half the size of the wall. So those of you who know me will know that is a massive plus. Loads of pens and a whiteboard brain. So, but yeah, not too far from that wall. There's a really nice training pitch or facility, at least 4 pitches. So yeah, new
Beautiful.
Space, new challenge, no excitement.
Yeah, feet under the table yet?
No way. But you know what? But what it is an opportunity to do is see. I don't know if when you're in one space in one role, if you're really able to reflect until you fully remove yourself and then see what journey you've been on and how you've operated in that space. So what's really nice around this is it's pre-season, so it's busy, it's exciting, lots going on, but there's also loads of space for me to go, oh, I wonder if what I learned there will fit in here, or how can I approach this group of coaches different or similarly to another group of coaches, or, people are people, but yeah, it's just trying to find different spaces and to reflect on kind of the journey I was on and how I can keep going on that journey with these new experiences. So yeah, it's a bit all over the place at the moment till I get there, but I'm just trying to slowly ease myself in, which is not easy for someone like me.
You'll be making waves, I'm sure, but it's interesting. So new person that we've had started in our team, he's basically gone from doing a job at his old employer behind a laptop, doing a job in the same place, in the same room, behind a different laptop, and nothing has changed. Like, there's no contextual environmental shift. So how do we make that mind leap to I'm doing something different when actually nothing physical's changed? So it must be quite weird, but you've actually got like your name on the door and everything, so it's a real shift.
That's the important part. But that is really interesting, because I remember ages ago we had a conversation. I don't think it was on Coach Conversation, but we had a conversation around people sharing their experiences of management and old environments and all this transitioning support piece. And I'm sure that the new employee will have different experiences, but actually, as you said, not a lot has changed, but some things have changed. How do they get to move into that space safely with excitement and freedom and autonomy, with bringing kind of the same umbrella with them? It's interesting, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, cool.
So right, let's dive in. So
yeah, what's on the cards?
So a few weeks back, we had a direct message on Twitter from Kenny, who's a hockey coach in Ireland. And it went into the secret little hidden bit that I stumbled across as I was looking at the messages in there. I was like, oh, did we see this? Like, oh, no, let's talk about that. So let me just kind of give you the short version of of Kenny's message. So Kenny talked about how in another sport, in another country, they were playing smaller versions of a team game, 2v2, 3v3, and mixing up the kids from different teams, okay? So if I put that into my context right now, so I go with my son's under-7 football team, and we take our 14 kids, and we go to play your under-7s football team, and you bring your 14 kids, and then we just mix them all up, and they go off and play 3v3, or 4v4, or 2v2, or whatever. And Kenny's question was, what do we think of that, and do we think it will work? So, what do you think? What's your thoughts?
Oh, I love it. And I'm sure there's restrictions that'll come in my secondary non-engaged optimistic side. But I just think, isn't that the essence of the growth, engagement, development? You're hearing different voices, seeing different things, sharing different interpretations of possibly the same sport before we get excited and go cross sport, but an opportunity for people to grow in that kind of autonomous, kind of self-directed way outside the same coach, the same training session space, or even if they're lucky enough to be in a league, just different maybe rules that work with that, or different spaces that they can explore, positions they might play on, if it's a pitch or a basketball court, or even if we look at more individual based sports, just getting into a pool and training with different people, you know, how they interpret the session, how they respond to different coaches. Like, there's loads of learning surely that can be had from that type of interaction. What do you think yourself?
Yeah, I love the concept of it, and I think it would be really interesting to look through different lenses of, well, what the benefits that we get from it, what are some of the risks. I guess one of the questions that jumps out straight away is, what complexities does it throw up for the coach? So what are the kind of key things do you think a coach would have to consider if that's how the experience worked?
It's hard at the moment to move away from what I know of basketball. So if I just stick with that for a second, what I'm thinking is, you have a coach that maybe needs to be like, have a certain level of self-awareness and control, and have covered in the sense of development and gameplay, have covered enough that they're able to engage if they are coaching different kids, if it ends up being that, like, a group of 10 come to them and they may not know them, like how to engage and what are the key pieces of information that you need to relay in that moment to help that group execute whatever they need to do or enjoy the experience. So that's one part. I think there's a development piece around the kind of growth of the person and the tech tack all in one. Like, can you develop a team? Can you move from where you were to where you need to be if there's this constant mix up of teams? How can you get some continuity and consistency going with messaging if it's happening all the time? So is there something maybe around that experience and that experience happening once every so often, like maybe academies or camps work, that you're mixed into this fruitful bundle of different people, but actually you come back then and, you know, you work with your group, your team, your coach, develop and enjoy the experience, and then share. You know, I think the initial part of that is the coach, their understanding of it, the responsibilities, clarity of how it operates, and then that consistency that you must be able to get back at some other point. That's just where I'm at the moment. What are you thinking?
I love the phrase, the fruitful bundle of a fruitful bundle of different people. Yeah. Yeah, as you were talking, there are a number of things that kind of jumped out. So what does it mean to the coach? I think it puts a real lens on some different things. So we know, we've talked about it on some of the previous shows, the importance of the coach-athlete relationship and understanding the individual in order to understand some of the behaviors that you might see or some of the tech performances that you might see. So I think it definitely shines a light on how can a coach build a relationship, a level of rapport, like instantly. And, you know, I see a lot of coaches that, you know, people would say it takes, you know, months to build a relationship. For a coach to be able to instantly build rapport really quickly, it would certainly shine a light on the skill set needed to be able to do that. And for some adults, that might be quite tricky, right? Because it might take them a long time to get to understand. But, you know, we know from some of the work of hostage negotiators and those kind of things, like building relationships and rapport, like sometimes in those kind of moments, you've got 3 minutes to do it or 30 seconds to do it. So the people that say, well, you can't build you know, you need 6 months to build a relationship. Not necessarily.
No.
So I think there's some interesting stuff around coach-athlete relationship that will come out of it. I think being able to deconstruct performance or a model of performance in whatever sport it is, to be able to go, that's my expectation based upon this age, would be really challenging, because knowing the kids, as we were talking about younger age group here, knowing the kids of what they can and can't do, you know, you're going to have to reset your expectations pretty quickly when an entirely different group of kids playing a different game that might shift and change will come along. I think, but one of the nice things it might do is it might make the adult check their own ego a bit more.
Yeah.
Because it's not their team, and the result of their team is not going to influence the self-worth of the coach, or how much they can brag to their mates in the pub on Sunday afternoon. I think it might be an interesting kind of check of ego.
Yeah. And the way before we talked about the cross sport, what we kind of learned as we go along in our work over the years, what I've noticed is, there has to be some groundwork for the level of interaction autonomy to be exciting and engaging for those athletes who do go to those camps. So say what I've experienced when I go and see a group of 14-year-old boys at a cycling, swimming, triathlon session, there's groundwork that's in to allow them to understand how to navigate that space, as opposed to here's go into this big melty pot and survive.
Yeah.
So that considered, I think the mixy part of what we're talking about, of a mixed tournament or mixed games or sessions, is really down to the coach being able to adapt to that, and to have the groundwork in via the relationship part, understanding the key important development parts, maybe having some goal setting and tweaking that depending on the age, obviously, but having some of those tweaked for those sessions that happen, tournaments or camps or weekends of something. But it would be great for coaches to look at how that operates across different sports, to see if they had a negative kind of lens on it, that they actually can be done, and how would we do it, and how could we make it great fun, or what if we let them play, had some constraints on it, and the coaches are watching and learning from each other. It's on a side note, but similar kind of thread. So at a workshop I delivered with Basketball England, there must have been a month ago, we went to watch two coaches. They were being observed from, I think it was part of their level 3, but we just went to listen and kind of, as part of our program around coaching practice, mic them up and listen. And some sat on the bench, some sat across from the coaches. One coach had never seen this group before, and they were putting these couple of games on for the assessment and our presence. So they had a coach there, and then they had a coach who was really familiar. And it was really interesting from our angle to see, how useful names were and terms were and rotations, how valued that kind of small interaction was for those athletes who were, I'd say, between 13 and 15, listening to that coach. What did she feel was important to help them get the best experience there, and to maybe have a bit of competency around that as well. And then their interaction with their names, and instead of going, number 5, you're off, Joan, you're off, kind of knowing some and not knowing others, what's happening in the other athlete's mind, or if they're not playing time or they're playing less, bench time or whatever, all of those things to consider. But then that's down, as you've alluded to, like their awareness, their ability to have that rapport and the connection, the empathy, what's important for that coach in the initial instance to make sure that the ripple effect of that, so knowing their names, maybe that was important, asking what they know about basketball already, how their experience of tournaments are, little things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the names bit is an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think as soon as you're familiar with the group that you're working with, and that, that kind of comes as second nature. But I think it's an easy one to then drift away from, because every session, that group in front of you, how can you have that fleeting, if you've got a big group, kind of moment that still makes you connect with everybody, whether it's a fist bump or a name check. Doesn't have to be an in-depth coaching moment, but as soon as you go into that kind of mixed environment, I think it puts a bit more onus on the coach to have to connect with individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great topic to explore, and I wonder, after this, I'll definitely reflect on what sports it wouldn't or might have more barriers, not necessarily wouldn't work, but where you'd have more barriers. And would that be down to the kind of nature of the sport and the culture of doing that, or lack of culture around that, or the coaches and their willingness, or, like what would stop that happening, and how could you have more of a collective kind of engagement in youth sport and development? So interesting, wouldn't it?
I think any of those kind of things, right, that flip the narrative of what you expect it to be, but still hold the values of what people want from it, I think are really interesting. Because one of the other things I think that strikes me about that is one of the reasons kids play sport is to make new friends. And this method, this approach would automatically bring kids together from different schools, from different social groups to form part of a team, which probably longer term would create less rivalry and hostility and some of those kind of fractious moments, because they've been part of something together, even if it's, oh yeah, you in that team with me on that thing, wouldn't you? And you have a bit of a connection and a bond which could be gained from those kind of things. And probably similar for coaches, that, you know, coaches may end up coming together to share how they foster the development of kids, as opposed to, it's my team, I'm going to focus on winning.
Yeah. How powerful is that really, when you pause for a second? And how sucked into the medals, the points, the cups, the trophies do coaches get for one reason or another, without the reality check of, why did I get involved? And, you know, where am I at in my own kind of ego and drive and pride levels, that actually these people in front of me, let me just bring out my creativity and see what we can do to create something really cool, that maybe January 2021 helps a kid in January 2030 get an interview somewhere for the biggest job of their life. Like, you know, gosh, yeah, that would be so cool. And yeah, it's making me think of like festivals of sport now, and, you know, that learning, that really kind of in situ sharing, that just, it was alien in the world of basketball for me growing up. You know, we didn't share, you kept your stuff to yourself, and it was only when you saw like NBA people sharing loads of stuff, you were kind of like, oh, they're sharing, yeah, but they have to execute it, that's the key part.
Yeah. I used to organise a football tournament. That makes me think about that. So 20 years ago, when I was a county football development officer, I organised, instead, we used to have like a mini soccer tournament every year for under 7s to under 11s. We'd have about 50 teams. And it was a fairly standard, you know, round robin, winners go through, blah, blah, blah. And I scrapped the whole thing and based the entire thing on fair play. So we didn't keep any scores. And all we did was, every team started each game with 10 points, but the referee gave a score for parents' behaviour, for coaches' behaviour, for kids' behaviour. So if the parents were being a nightmare on the side of the pitch, they just got -1 point. If the kids were a nightmare, they got -1 point. And by the end of it, we had fair play winners. And,
that's,
you know,
absolutely brilliant.
People would go around and, you know, you would see the coaches keeping score and putting together their own league table based upon the score, when actually no one was keeping score, and it was only the coach that was keeping score. And the kids were more focused on sportsmanship and the values of being a good team player, or helping the other team learn how to take a throw on or tie their laces. You know, those little kind of people moments that are sometimes lost in the heat of a battle.
I could list 3 or 4 from the Olympics that cheered me up, onion in my eyes. You know, those moments that will be forever there for kids to say, when someone falls on a track in an Olympic race by accident, or a trip or whatever, but not malicious intent, and they're picking each other up. Like, all the years building up to it, everything that's invested in, and they look at each other and they pick each other up. Like, you know, that stuff's special, you know, and they're adults doing that. So there must have been something along the road for them that inspired them to I have a choice how I behave here. I can get really angry at you because you've ruined my Olympic chance, or I can give you a high five or a hand or whatever it is to help us get over the line.
Indeed.
You know, there was a good tweet, I don't know if you saw it during the week. So I've got a book from Liz and Molly, who do the they don't do the illustrations, but their book is No Hard Feelings. And then Katie Warner during the week posted it, and she had the top, she had well, actually I could pop it in here. The top is the kind of your typical look of measure of success. I think it was medals and what was the other one? Beating others. That was another one. It made me think when you talked about the coach and creating a hostile environment. And actually, I was thinking, it brought me back to some coaches I had internationally and domestically saying, we don't like that other team. And that became ingrained in our mind. And then they beat us, and that kind of amplified it. But actually, I really liked the people on the team. I just never ended up being friends with them. But the bottom part of it was just all the different things that happened. So the role model element, the community spirit, like inspiring others, enjoyment, personal best, like keeping an eye on that. And I know this was post Olympics that we kind of have to remember people coming back who maybe didn't achieve or aspire to what they thought. But how cool is it that there are options across all sports for them to go, hey, this is a win today. This is a different way of looking at that day. You know, tournament, you met 8 new people, 6 other ways of looking at something, and you got a fair play award for being a really cool person.
Yeah. Loads in that, isn't there?
Yeah. Do you think there's, I know we're lingering here now just before we tidy up, do you think we're losing sight of what it takes to compete at that highest level if we go down that road early and people don't know how to get back on the track for the elevation of kind of standards and expectations?
I mean, the short answer is probably yes, to a degree. And so the interesting one is then this week, wasn't it, yesterday, or 2 days ago, depending on when this goes out now, was the 4x100 meter sprinter, CJ Uja, is that his name? CJ something, tested positive.
Yeah.
So the impact of that on potentially his other 3 teammates losing their Olympic silver medal because he's tested positive for whatever he got tested positive for. And somewhere in that mix, there must be a coach, a head of performance, a medical person that's been involved. You would assume. Yeah. I appreciate this is a big, potentially libelous topic we were just opening here, but and he may well end up testing negative second time around and everything's fine.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But at what stage then has that coach said, or the athletes taking it upon themselves, this is appropriate? And therefore that entire bit that you talked about on that graph that we just showed a second ago of winning and beating others is absolutely the detriment of affecting other people's lives. Wow.
I mean, like the initial reaction was, oh no, what has happened to the support structure where this person felt they needed to do that? What is that, if indeed it materializes to be truth and medals are lost and all that? Like, oh my goodness. And then the implications of the other people who've worked so hard, because you're in a team, and the bigger body of, you know, athletics and the youth who are watching it and the club and, you know, all this other stuff, the ripple part of it. But I thought, like, what has happened that became okay? Or did they not tell anybody and it became this I need to do this and this is the only way I see out of it? You know, it's yeah, well, it's a watch this space moment.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. But hey, I'm still riding that crest of a wife that's come home with a bronze medal. So,
oh my gosh, I saw a picture. I mean, oh gosh, how cool. How cool. Like, what an experience. Maybe she'll make a special appearance to tell us about it. But I think when you saw the team arriving home and Cal having the medal, and, you know, that kind of, like, imagine that feeling of that at that age, having a medal around his neck going, it's an Olympic medal. How cool.
I know, unbelievable. You know? Yeah. But, you know, I not at liberty to talk about what's gone on today, but they've had a full day of review today. So
fab. Brilliant.
So, you know, they're 3rd best in the world, but they've still deconstructed the tournament with a full player review, coaches input, players input, and trying to shape it to move forwards, because that's a crucial part of what goes on, right? You know.
Oh my gosh, let's unpick that the next day. And, well, not that, but the whole idea of reviewing and stuff, because I know we've touched on reflection. Wow, cool. Yeah, well, keep riding that wave.
Yeah, and thanks, Kenny, for the topic. That was really cool. Thanks.
That was cool. Yeah, definitely. At Coach Convo for more topics or more feedback on the different areas. We'd love to hear it. The link is below, coachconversation@gmail.com. That's where you can email us some of your thoughts on any of the episodes or any ideas of things that are happening in your environment. Share them. We'll dive into them together. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you for episode 11 next week. Bye.